To plug in your headphones.
This is video 16, and we had covered up to slide 96. And this again, just to recap, today is March 29th, 2020. And this is Coronavirus Pandemic Terminator series talks. And so this is just an introductory slide. We're going to go to slide 95, 96. And we, in the last video, already talked about this. And now we're going to go to slide 96. And this is just an example to show you the problem with Contaminator here. This is just a cyberspace picture pulled from Google. I have no copyrights on this, but nonetheless, this is just pulled for demonstrating the difficulty. So just assume in this room there are these two patients, and if one of these patients is coughing up coronavirus particles, even though in theory, according to the standard advice, these viral particles should only go up to 6 feet away. But like we mentioned, even if 1% of those viral particles don't obey the scientific advice, sooner or later this whole air is going to become contaminated, and this patient's life is going to be jeopardized along with coronavirus. And then this healthcare worker who's sitting over here, also his entire facial skin is touching the coronavirus contaminated air. So, and we already talked about the limitation of this surgical mask this healthcare worker is wearing, and his forehead and everything, as you can see, is contaminated. These cap he's wearing is designed to keep hair from falling into the surgical field. Are not designed to defend against small viral particles, which are 5, 10, 25 micron size. And same thing over here, this person, healthcare worker, has actually taken few more precautions, but you see the limitations of the surgical mask we already discussed. And the hair and the skin over here and the skin underneath the mask is all exposed, touching the contaminated air particles, viral particles. And same thing over here, you can see these healthcare workers have actually done much more extensive preparation. They seem to have much more sophisticated masks, but again, like I mentioned, the inside of the mask, before the mask was worn, is already contaminated with viral particles, so is the outside, and sooner or later, this hand is going to have to touch that to take the mask off of the face. And then you can see the skin already is exposed. So this again is a suboptimal preparation in my mind. And this again is another suboptimal preparation because of the limitation of the surgical mask we talked, and this the cap, which again doesn't protect, and this whole skin is exposed. So think in terms of scuba kind of mask or snorkeling mask. And eventually in my version 2, of what I have in mind, we really need self-contained breathing apparatus. So we don't even have to rely on filtering the air. If you have 100% sterilized air that's pumped into that compartment created within the plexiglass and your face with a rubber seal around it. And we already talked about pressurized air purified respirators and pressurized filter air supplied to the cavity. We already talked, and then we talked about biohazard suits. And when the skin covering hazmat material suit covers your whole skin minus the area covered with plastic, your entire skin is protected, and your hands still have to be covered with gloves. The present kind of surgical gloves or rubber gloves we have are not truly protective. Eventually, I have a special glove design in my mind that you can wear over the biohazard suit for 8 hours, and the patent and design of that glove is in my brain, and I would be happy to share with anybody that's interested. And at the end of all these videos, I'm going to have an email address where people can contact me and get the design of that special glove. Until then, ordinary rubber gloves will have to suffice before the new gloves can be manufactured. An advantage of this would be no contaminated air with lethal viral particle touches your skin, your eyes, your nose, lungs, hands, face, mouth, etc. Only filtered air goes to your nose, mouth, eyes, and lungs. And again, once we are at a place where even lay people are wearing those biohazardous suits and removing those biohazardous suits, we'll have much more detailed instructions on that. But of course, until then, once this equipment becomes readily available, detailed instructions on how to put it on, take it off would be made available. But if anyone has access to this equipment right now, keep your gloves on, remove the bunny suit, change gloves. With new gloves, clean the mask with Clorox wipes or bleach. Take off the gloves and clean your hands with hand sanitizer nicely and let the hand sanitizer dry on it for 30 seconds. And after that, wash your hands for 20 seconds, just like Dr. Sanjay Gupta on CNN shows, for 20 seconds. And then after your hands have been dried, then you're free to touch your face, mouth, and eat your food. The minimal hazmat or hazardous material suit specifications have to be, obviously they can be called bunny suits by some people. They have to be disposable at this point. Hazmat suits made out of thick rubber or plastic combo can be reusable. Then of course you'll have to have decontamination showers, which might be practical for industrial settings, but might not be practical for individuals trying to protect themselves. So that's why reusable or disposable hazmat suits would be the way to go for the time being. A special glove that can be worn. So pretend like this is my bunny suit, and the special glove would come over up to this level, and then this hand with the glove can be dipped into concentrated bleach. And that design of that patent is still in my mind. And of course, I'm happy to share it with any company that would be interested in that. And version 2, 3, and 4 of the sterilized air PPR designs and the biohazardous material suit patent design is also in my brain, and I would be happy to share the design with any company that's interested in this, learning the design from me. And I would have an email available at the end of this so people would know how to contact me. And hopefully soon I would also have a telephone number. I'm somewhat reluctant to give my personal telephone number because I don't want thousands of phone calls on my personal phone. So I'd have a special dedicated phone number for that also soon. Thank you. And then the other concern I have is the way hospitals are bringing COVID-19 or potentially COVID-19 patients into the buildings. This again is going to sound alarmist, and there is no scientific data to back my thinking on this, but I would rather share my thinking out in the public now so people can at least start thinking along it. It's a pure scientific thinking, might not have scientific studies behind it, but I was involved in 2001 in our medical center, or 2002 in preparing for the anthrax terrorism attacks that were going on. And at that time, we were thinking along anthrax spores that were very hardy and stable and could contaminate our air ducts in the hospitals. So bringing patients into hospital buildings whose COVID-19 status is unknown and contaminating the hospital air, potentially air ducts and hospital surfaces, can have extremely negative consequences on the mortality rates in the hospital settings, and also on the health and morbidity and mortality of healthcare workings. In my judgment, all these patients need to be kept out in large parking lot areas away from the hospital with artificially tents that have some limited healthcare equipment available in them, and then very quickly the air is circulated out of those tents. These patients, again, same way those patients who require inpatient kind of setting, they have to be taken care of in tented hospital rooms, just like those are used in Kuwait and Iraq in combat theaters. Bringing these patients into the hospital settings and contaminating the air in the hospitals has potential for hugely negative consequences. And to the best of my knowledge, no healthcare advising agency is thinking along those lines. So let me read this slide to see if I miss. Okay. The other concern I have is in the hospital setting, there are common areas that all patients use. Patients who are just there for regular COPD exacerbation, lung disease, heart disease, kidney disease, and those patients all use common areas in the hospital like elevators, CAT scanner rooms, MRI suites. And those kind of surfaces, again, have huge potential for contamination. And it's impossible to clean every surface of a MRI machine and or a CAT scanner. And then that contamination with coronavirus particles is going to be passed to patients who are otherwise ill but don't have coronavirus, and of course to the employees who are working in those kind of settings. So taking COVID-19 patients into common areas in the hospital like elevators, radiology suites, CAT scanners, MRI rooms, again, has extremely negative morbidity, mortality potential. These patients need to be kept in tented rooms in large parking lots away from hospital buildings. And they need to be provided good, high quality, compassionate care. That's not what my concern is. However, good quality, compassionate care does not mean that contaminating the entire hospital and jeopardizing the health of the healthcare workers. We need to have proper protective equipment like I already described, and then these patients need to be screened for COVID-19, and those who require inpatient kind of care, the tented rooms need to be built in large parking lots. And again, we need to provide excellent, compassionate medical care to these patients away from hospital buildings, which do not have CAT scanners and MRIs. And while we are in the middle of crisis, the doctors have to use their best clinical skills and make best decisions without equipment like CAT scanners and MRIs. Those things are very nice in non-pandemic situations, but at this point, these equipment would become the source of continuous infections in the hospitals. These commonly shared machines in the hospitals can lead to significantly higher infection rates of COVID-19 in negative patients and also in healthcare employees. And again, we also need, we are not using our information technology or IT and special apps that can be utilized for thinning out the crowds in hospital waiting rooms, ER waiting rooms, grocery checkout counters, and wherever there's a bottleneck of people. And again, I have the design for that IT app also in my brain, and I would be happy to share it with any company that would be interested. And this is slide number 107. So we are going to conclude this at slide number 107. And this is video 16 that we are concluding. So I'm going to conclude this video and then we'll pick it up in a few minutes.